Welcome everyone to our summer family training series, Empowering Family Leaders, Hope for the Future. This training is sponsored by the Iowa Family Leadership Training Institute, who makes it home in Child Health Specialty Clinic, the Division of Child and Community Health at the University of Iowa Steadfast Children's Hospital. IFLTI is in its 6th year and has graduated over 50 families from its 4-session formal training, in addition to offering regional and virtual hour sessions like this. And now I'd like to invite Ian to give us instructions for the Spanish speaking.
Thank you, Angela. I will do this part in Spanish for our Spanish-speaking audience. Hola, buenas tardes y gracias por estar con nosotros aquí en esta presentación de esta semana. Los que estén listos en español, para escuchar la presentación en español con la traducción que yo voy a tratar de hacer en vivo, presionen al botón, debe de haber un botón abajo, interpretación. Apriétenle ahí, hagan clic y van a entrar al canal donde van a escuchar mi voz. Gracias y ahorita les ayudo con esta presentación. Thank you, Angela.
And now just to go over a few of the Zoom edited, please keep your microphone muted unless you need to talk. Keep your video on if you are comfortable with that. If you have questions for our speaker, please use the chat feature. And we'll gather the questions at the end for our discussion sessions. So right now I'd like to, in this session, we want to learn about habits of system thinking as a tool to help family leaders solve leadership challenges. Our speaker today is Tonya Krueger, a registered dietitian nutritionist and earned her Master's of Art degree in health education. She serves as the Early Access Program Coordinator for the Child Health Specialty Clinic. She has 15 years of professional experience working in Iowa that includes Head Start, Early Access, and the Diabetic Internship Program at Iowa State University. She lives in Central Iowa with her husband and daughter and enjoy gardening and cooking. Welcome, Tonya.
Thank you. And I am going to try and get myself organized here and share my screen. We'll see if I can do this correctly. I also want to make sure that I have my video set up. Okay, so what are you seeing?
That's
my
good.
Slides?
Yep, looks good.
Yes.
Okay, but I am not seeing what I want to see, so. Okay, I think I am ready now. So thank you, Angela, so much for the introduction, and thank you for the opportunity to present today. I was very fortunate to participate in this session last week, and I really appreciate the team that has put this together. So with that, I know it's lunchtime and I totally understand if you're eating and your camera's off, but I do hope to stretch your brain a little bit over the lunch hour, and I encourage you to engage and participate in the presentation. So I do have some opportunities for you to share thoughts and just share some of your experiences and ideas. So with that, some of the things we're going to look at here over the next hour, we're going to look at systems and habits and how they're important in growing your leadership skills. We're going to recognize habits of systems thinking, and then we're going to take some time to practice those and even use the iceberg as a problem-solving tool. And I know that's something that Derek introduced in his presentation last week as well. So we're going to build on that a little bit. But before we get started, I would like to get a little bit of information from you guys and just kind of see how familiar you are with systems thinking. So Diane, I think you have a poll to share and it has popped up. So if you could just pick the answer that describes your experience with systems thinking the best, that would be great. How much do you know about systems thinking? You can mark those that apply. So you've never heard of it. You're familiar with some of the habits, you've read a book, you've participated in a workshop, or you've completed a systems thinking training or program. So I'll give you a little bit of time to click if there's more than one that describes your level of knowledge with systems thinking. And then Diane, I'll let you kind of let us know when that looks like it's wrapped up and you can share the results.
About half of us have voted so far. Some people on phones might find it a little difficult to find the poll, but if you touch toward the bottom of your phone screen, you should see some other options in Zoom. Give it just a little bit more time. Okay, here we go.
All right, so it looks like about a third of you haven't heard of it. Some of you are familiar, about half are familiar with some of the habits, and some of you have also participated in a workshop. So that's great. It just helps me know your level of familiarity, and hopefully you'll be able to learn something and take something and apply it after the session today. That's my goal for you. So Diane, can you close the poll? Maybe I need to do that on my screen.
I
think I'm good.
Is it still there?
Well, there we go. And now I've moved my slide ahead, so I think we're good. So first, I just want to spend a little bit of time talking about the characteristics of a system. So we've kind of got 4 aspects of a system that come together that really make it a system. So there are elements or parts of a system. They're connected. There's interconnections in a system. A system is dynamic. It's changing. And then a system always has a specific purpose or a goal. So those are 4 characteristics of a system. So if we look at that definition overall, a system is a collection of elements that interact with each other over time to function as a whole. So when we talk about systems, there are a lot of different things that could come to mind or that we could talk about. If we think about science, the systems in science, we could have the solar system, the skeletal system, weather would be a system, soil is a system. When I look out my window and I see my yard and my garden, that's a system. There's lots of elements or parts, there's plants, they're connected to the soil, they're changing with the weather, but the goal is to grow and make my yard pretty and have good food to eat. So that's an example of a system that might be related to science, but we can also have physical structures that are systems. So think about your house. You've got your framework, you've got different levels perhaps, you've got a roof, you've got foundation. Plumbing would be a system that's actually within a system of your home. And that system has different elements or parts. It's got tubes, it's connected throughout the levels. It's changing depending on what you're putting into the system. And the goal is to carry your wastewater away safely and in a way that's healthy. So that's an example of a physical system. We can also have institutions that are systems. So this would be schools, government, healthcare. Those would also be considered systems. And then at another level, we can think of systems within communities and more specifically families as a system. And that's where family leaders come in and systems thinking are tied together. So when you hear the term systems thinking, what comes to mind? I've given you some examples of systems, but if you could just type words into the chat and just share some of the things that come to mind when you hear the words systems thinking, that would be great. And then Diane, if you could share those with us so I can hear them too, that would be helpful.
I see school. Process thinking. Teamwork.
Oh, that's a good one. Absolutely.
Support system, family and friends, connections, collaboration, taking into account diverse perspectives, the medical system.
Great. Well, I can tell you guys are warmed up and you are engaged, even though it is our lunch hour. So those are all great things to have on your mind as we continue to work through this. So we've talked about systems and thinking, but let's kind of define that a little bit more. So for the presentation today, we're going to look at systems thinking as a transformational approach to learning, problem solving, and understanding the world. Systems thinking helps people of all ages and walks of life see beyond the heart of the problem and find fair and lasting solutions that deliver benefits. Some of the items that you shared in chat definitely drew out some of these aspects of systems thinking. The things that I think are keys for leaders in this definition is learning, problem solving, and understanding. Those are really important to bring forth positive change. And if you look at the picture here, I like this because it shows us people and they're connected and they're different. But if we just are focused on one person or one aspect of the picture, we're missing everything else that is going on. So when we're talking about systems thinking, I want you to have this big picture in mind where there's lots of people or things that are connected together, and we're looking at as one unit rather than just focusing on a single part of the system. Okay, so we've got systems and thinking, and now let's take a little bit of time to talk about habits. So I've got some examples of a goal, and then I've got a habit. So when we think of a goal, it's something very concrete, something that we can measure. So for example, taking 10,000 steps for a day would be a goal. If we wanted to turn that into a habit, making physical activity a daily practice might be the habit that connects with this. Or if we want to eat dinner as a family 3 nights a week, that could be a goal. But ultimately, that habit, meeting that goal on a regular basis, could become a habit of incorporating family time every day. So when we look at systems thinking, the goal might be to learn about systems thinking by participating in this webinar today, or maybe reading a book. But really, we want this to become a habit for you. So you could use these aspects or these tools without even thinking about it in your daily life. So while a system has a goal, a couple slides back, that was one of the characteristics of a system. When we look at habits, we're really going beyond that single goal, and we're looking at this as something that touches a lot of aspects, touches a lot of different things, and that is used just naturally and just kind of becomes a part of the way we think and the way we interact with others. So I really hope that this just helps introduce you to some of these concepts and allows you to practice them so you can transform the way you look at your role as a leader. So one more picture and really looking at habits, and this really puts it all together. So a habit is defined as a usual way of doing things. When we talk about habits of a systems thinker, this does not limit the ways of thinking. So there's no limits on the way that we can apply this or the way that we want you to think in terms of systems thinking. We really want to encourage flexible thinking and appreciation of new and emerging insights and multiple perspectives. So 2 key things here for leaders are being flexible and considering multiple perspectives. This is going to help lead to better outcomes. And if we look at this picture here, it's has a lot of different areas or different things that you might focus on. And there's a mix of different habits and goals that are related. But really the idea is that there's no limits on the way that you think or on your thinking. There's not necessarily wrong ideas or wrong thinking. This really encourages a broad perspective and a broad look at systems. Okay, so with that, we're going to refer to the handout that was emailed, and I think Diane shared a link that you can look at as well. And these are 14 habits of systems thinkers, and this has been put together by the Waters Center. And these are really resources. These are pictures, and they actually have cards that you can get as well, but we're going to look at the handout today. But this illustrates just 14 different habits of systems thinkers, and I'm going to refer to this throughout the presentation. Know that these habits are not just for engineering or science or business or education. They've been developed with input from a variety of people, from a variety of backgrounds, and they can be used in a variety of settings, including families and all those systems that we talked about previously. So we're going to do a little bit of some more activities. So I would like you to think of a caption for this picture. If you'd like to share, you can type it in the chat, but don't push enter until I count to 3. I don't want you to be influenced by others, but just take a little bit of time to think of a caption for this picture, for what you can see. Hopefully you've come up with something. Hopefully a few of you are creative or brave enough to share. So I'm going to count to 3. 1, 2, 3. We'll see what you came up with. Do we have any captions?
Yes, we have give me a hand, how to include others, let me help you, 2 is better than 1, don't rock the boat, come on in, the water is low.
You guys are very creative and I can see there's a lot of service-oriented people participating today and really aware of others. And I think those are great captions. So keep that in mind. And now I'm going to show you the full picture. So again, you guys were very positive and very welcoming and including. And in all reality, what was happening is this boat is sinking. There's a hole in the boat and the 2 people at the end are just watching and hanging out and not helping. So it's interesting how just having a bigger view, expanding our ability to see or looking at the big picture can kind of change, what we recognize or what we focus on. What's really going on might look different depending on where you're focused. That kind of also takes us back to that graphic with all the faces and all the people connected. When we're talking about systems thinking, we always want to look at this big system view. All right, I've got another picture for you to look at, and you can unmute or go ahead and chat, but just share what you see when you look at this picture. What do we have anything in the chat? So when I look at it, I see a clown, maybe a hat, a smiley face, an eyes, nose, and ears. So that's one perspective. Now, what happens when the picture changes a little bit? Now, what do you see? Does anybody see a tent? Maybe a circus performer?
Somebody sees a dog.
Yes, there's a dog and a ball.
In a circus, yep.
So this is just another example that when you look at a system in different ways, you see new things. So let's take a look at the different habits. And again, if you could unmute and share or just chat. From this slide or from your handout, do you see any habits that we put into practice in those activities?
Seeking to understand the big picture.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Looking at the big picture.
Would changes perspective to increase understanding also be one?
Definitely. In the second example with the picture, we didn't necessarily change, the picture changed on the computer, but that is definitely still a change in perspective. So those are the two habits, and that's just one way to kind of help think about those habits. We have another interactive game, but this one is going to require a pen and paper. So as I'm talking, if you can find a pen or a pencil and a piece of scrap paper to write on, that would be helpful. What is say a word, and I want you to write down the first image that comes to your mind. Don't pause. There's no right or wrong answer. Just whatever you think of when you hear the word, write that down. It should be just an instant response. There's going to be two sets of words, and then we'll kind of debrief, and then we'll do it again, and then we'll talk about it again. So hopefully you've had time to get a piece of paper. And this is going to be fun because we do have different languages being spoken. So we'll see how much words matter in communication and how important it is to understand others in a system. So let me know, are we ready for the words? All right, so the first word is sail. Write down what comes to mind when you hear me say sail. The second word is waste. Write down what you think of when I say waste. The last word is pray. Pray. What do you think of when you hear me say pray? Okay, so as we debrief, we're going to use annotate in Zoom. So at the top of your screen, you'll see view options, and you want to click on that, and the third one down will say annotate. So you want to select that. And then we're going to do the stamp feature. So you're going to want to select stamp. So I'm going to advance my slide and give you a little bit of time to find annotate, but then I want you to stamp next to the picture that represents what you thought of when I said sail. So go ahead and take your stamp and show us what you thought of. We have a few shoppers, but it looks like most of you are water people. So we have a sailboat and we have like something that is on sale. Same word, but different things come to mind. All right, we're gonna go to the next one. So Diane, if you can help me clear the annotations, that would be great. So just give us a chance to clear off the screen. Okay, so go ahead. When you heard waste, what did you think of? All right, so it looks like many people thought of like garbage, things that we would throw away. Maybe not as many thought of our body, our waste of our body, but again, they're both the same, just a different thing came to mind. All right, and the last one, we'll clear the annotate. This was pray. So what did you think of? All right. So here, number 2, more people were thinking about pray as an action of a person. A few people were thinking about maybe hunting or thinking about animals. All right, thanks for sharing your answers. So we're gonna do a few more of these. So hopefully you're ready. The next word is weak. Weak. What do you think of when I say weak? Now, hair. What comes to mind when I say hair? And finally, patience. Write down what you think of when I say patience. All right, and then let's get ready to annotate again. So our first word was week. So what kind of week came to mind? Looks like it's fairly even here between muscles and scheduling. Both accurate, both are correct. I wasn't giving you anything more than what you heard. All you knew was what I was saying. You didn't have any context. So it's perfectly normal to have different things come to mind. All right, we can clear. Thank you. And this one was hair. So again, some different perspectives. Hair on your head versus an animal. And then the last one, patience. What did we think of with patience? All right, so pretty evenly split here. I think this is kind of a nice segue. I want to think about just some of the pictures and different things that came to mind. And in this picture, we have the word patience. And when we talk about healthcare and we talk about maybe education, this might be an example where in healthcare, if someone says the word patience, you may think of picture number one. But perhaps as a teacher in education, you might think more of patience as number two. So are there any other examples or words that come to mind? If we think about two systems, healthcare and education, what images come to mind, and how might the meaning we attach to these words influence our actions? So think about the setting or the context, and how does that influence how we respond? So can anyone think of a word that might cross over between healthcare and education that has a different meaning depending on the setting?
I was thinking of rest, meaning what the doctor prescribes, or a rest in music where you take a pause and don't play.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Definitely very different, similar, but very different. One is sustaining your activity for a long time, and one is just a short pause in different settings.
Clementine wrote privacy.
Ah, sure. That's definitely something that we think about in healthcare. It's also important in education, but those might look very different. I know something I thought of is test. So in healthcare, if we're talking about a test, we might be talking about a blood poke, imaging, something more invasive. Whereas in education, when we say test, we might be thinking of a pencil and paper. So, if we're not clear in what we're saying and we're talking about the kind of test where you're going to get poked and someone is expecting to have to respond and give information in healthcare, that's really going to change the interaction.
Another one we have is shared plan, Rachel's, and Martha suggested fail.
Oh, sure. Sure, those are very good. So when we talk about what fail, is that good? Is that bad? What is that connected to? So being connected to something really can change how we respond or how we think about it. And a shared plan is definitely important in both settings. But when we're talking about healthcare, it's very different than when we're talking about education and learning. Healthcare can be more invasive, just like the test, whereas as education is more communication and community oriented. So let's go ahead and just kind of debrief a little bit more. When we practiced and we saw others' responses and thought about views and perspectives and what words mean, what are some habits that we practice in this example? If you want, we can still do annotate. And if you want to go ahead and just annotate on the screen, if there's something that you think you see that we did, go ahead and mark it. So changes perspectives to increase understanding, right? You had your own perspective of what you saw individually, but then when you saw what other people thought and saw different choices, you were able to understand, oh, I didn't think of that kind of sale, but yes, that is accurate. So definitely changes perspectives. Let's see what else I see. Recognizing that a system structure generates its behavior. So especially if we're looking at different systems. That can make a difference as well. Making meaningful connections, definitely looking at connections between systems, looking at the connections that we have with words and how we connect words to experiences. So I'm looking for stamps. The one that we're really going to focus on, and I don't know that anybody marked this, but this is great because I have a whole slide dedicated to it, is considers mental models. So really what we were doing in that Words Matter activity is we were kind of surfacing some mental models, not in a very heavy way, in a very light way, but mental models are deeply held beliefs, assumptions, generalization, or even images, and we were focused on images that influence how we understand the world and how we take action. So if I said, I'm going to go sail, it could potentially, you might think, oh, she's going to go on a boat, or, oh, she's going to go find a garage sale. So that's just a very light example. And I think that the main thing to keep in mind when we look at mental models is as we look at this picture and we see the little girl, she's looking at the dog and she thinks, oh, there's this dog, I can love it, it's cuddly, it's soft, it will be happy. And then we have the adult, and the adult is looking at the dog, and the adult is thinking about paying for dog food, taking care of the dog, the responsibility that the dog would bring into that situation. So in this case, both of those mental models are accurate. They're right. There's no wrong mental model. But a lot of times, if we aren't aware of what another person is thinking or how they're responding to something, it can be difficult to communicate and it can be difficult to get on the same page. So with this habit, considering mental models, we really want to be able to increase understanding to solve problems. I know often as leaders, we think of follow the leader, right? So we have a leader and everyone is going to follow that person. But when we're talking about leading and mental models, the goal is not to have other people have the same mental model as you. The goal is to understand all the mental models that are out there and that are being represented in your system and increase your understanding of each other's perspectives and experiences to determine the best solution to the problem. So with that, we're going to move into an activity, and I have a video for you, but this is an iceberg. And so this is a great metaphor just for the process used to look at problems and solutions. It also is a great picture just to think about systems as a whole. And so instead of me talking, I have a video that I would like to share, and I'm going to do my best to make this work. And I'm also going to do my best to bring up the Spanish subtitles. And I'm going to try again. And Diane, if I can't get this to pull up on my computer, I may ask you to help me out. It looks like it's just spinning for me. There we go.
The iceberg model is a tool
But I'm
that
going
helps
to
us
turn
think
on
about
captions here.
mental models and how complex systems fit into a broader context.
So I've got captions, but I cannot switch it to the right to Spanish in my present mode. So either give me some tips, Diane, or just help me out.
So click settings and auto translate, and then it should give you the option for
So since I'm in present, it is not showing me. I can't see those boxes. Maybe I need to minimize.
Well, actually, I don't see them on the link you gave me either. So I don't know where. Well, let's just do it with the English ones, and that.
If you've seen a picture of an iceberg before.
Okay, well, I had good intentions, but I'm going to just go ahead and start this from the beginning.
You can't make them stick ahead of time.
You probably know there are too many.
And it's really frustrating.
All right, well, I'm going to see if I can bring this back to the beginning, but I don't know if it's going to work for me.
In components, what is above the surface or what is seen, and what is below the surface or what is unseen. Picture the top of the iceberg as what we see. Think of this as events, occurrences, or something that's happened. For example, someone might start to feel sick. Then we move just below the surface to trends and patterns. We notice that trends occur, which shows us that an event is not isolated. Over time, we see deeper patterns in what is reoccurring. For example, noticing that you start to feel sick when you're tired or exhausted. The next part of the iceberg looks at the way a system is organized, or the structure of a system, because structure drives behavior. The way elements interact and connect results in the patterns and events we observe. Sometimes we can see physical structures impacting the system and environment, but the system structures may also be considered intangible. These may be harder to detect, but the trends tell us that the structures are there. So if you keep getting sick when you're tired, you may notice that you created a structure of working late, not getting enough sleep at night, and not taking time to let your body rest and relax, mentally or physically. Mental models are represented at the base of the iceberg. Mental models are the thinking that drives the structure and the behavior. So your mental model may be that you believe in working as hard as you can to get the job done as soon as possible, which drives you to overwork yourself, leaving you tired and susceptible to getting sick. People often get caught up in dealing with the event, like treating the symptoms when you're sick, that we forget our mental models shape the structures of the system we are part of, which influence the patterns and events that occur. The iceberg model helps us step back and identify the events that occur, distinct patterns and trends, the structure, and the mental models that created those structures. Let's put it all together. Mental models are the thinking that drives the structure that leads to trends which cause events. I want you to say it with me this time. Mental models are the... Wait, no, seriously, come on, say it out loud with me. Ready? Mental models are the thinking that drives the structure that leads to trends which cause events. I know it's silly, but hey, it helps you process and remember it.
All right, so hopefully that just gives you a bit more understanding of the iceberg tool. And I know that this slide is kind of busy, but it goes through the different levels that were just explained in the video. So what we can see at the top of the iceberg, that's really represents an event. So some questions to ask might be, what is happening? How do I react? How do I respond? But then what's under the water is what we cannot see, and that's actually even more important than what has happened. So the first level under the water are patterns of behavior. And sometimes we have to be in a system for a while to see what these are. We can ask, what are the patterns? What changes have occurred over time? And then think about how events might be related. The next level is looking at the structure. This is definitely unseen. And this can influence the patterns of behavior above it. Something to consider is the relationships and connections. And really, we want to be able to find a place to make change, potentially within the structure of the system. But then the deepest part here is the mental model, and this is unseen and deeply hidden. And this is where it really requires communication, listening, to allow to kind of surface mental models and understand perspectives of others. So I have an example of an event, and this is something that involves, it's related to early intervention. So that's my example. So think about this example. We have an event. So as a parent that's involved with early intervention, they have some questions. And so they go to their online community for help. So that's the event. The things to think about is what might have been going on here. So the questions that were asked online by the parent, are the services being provided typical for early intervention? Is my experience typical? This is what I'm seeing. Is this normal? And then the other question was, can I change services? So that's our event. So I want you to think about this and understand that initially in this example, there was just one early intervention provider. But then after a year, 2 additional providers joined monthly meetings. So if we look at this as the event, the parent posted questions online. If we look at some patterns, over time, more providers attended the same meeting. Behavior here, the parent asked a question to her community, but she asked her online community about, services. Then let's think about the structure. If you're familiar with early intervention, you might have an idea of what services are like and how they're offered in the home. And this would be something for a child that's under the age of 3. So there's some specifics that are part of early intervention. And then think about mental models. And this is really where I want to spend a little bit more time. Think about potentially the mental model of the parent. What might the parent be thinking based on what you know? They asked for input from their community online. Additional services have been provided. What might the parent be thinking in this case? If you want to share in chat or unmute, that would be great.
They feel like they might be doing something wrong since more people were pulled in.
Oh, very good. They might feel like they're doing something wrong because there's additional providers. Yeah, is this typical? Is this normal? Definitely.
They might feel like the professionals are the ones who know best, and whatever they recommend or do is what's possible.
So they're just maybe only limited. They're kind of limited in accepting what's available, and trusting what the providers are doing. But then this parent did ask some questions. So we could think, well, maybe they would like more visits, or maybe they would like more time with their providers, but they didn't ask their providers. So then let's switch gears and think about it. What might a mental model that the providers have in this situation? And again, we only know, what I've got on the screen here. So this is very vague, but it's really helpful to kind of dig in a little bit. And instead of just looking at the event and coming to a really quick conclusion about what's going on, kind of peeling back the layers and spending a little bit more time looking at the potential perspective of someone else. So what might the providers be thinking about in this case? They could be thinking about saving the mom time and streamlining their services and limiting the interruptions in the home. They might be thinking about the importance of connecting as a team with the parent on a monthly basis, which are all really good things. So both perspectives are mental models are valid. But there might be a little bit of disconnect because instead of going to the providers in this case and the parent asking them about services, they went to the online community. So it kind of helps us see, okay, there's probably two different mental models here, and it's going to take a little bit of time and some communication to see what each party's thinking, and then to realize what the best solution would be within the structure of early intervention and the policies and procedures and requirements that are in place. So that's just one example where you might be able to use the iceberg tool to kind of think through a situation. And
Tonya, can you hear me?
Yes.
One more, Clem says the child is a good training opportunity for staff. That might be what providers are thinking.
Absolutely. It could be that they want to bring more people in because they want to have more people part of this visit and part of the experience. So their intention is not to overwhelm the mom with people, but rather to enhance and improve the learning of others. So there are so many possibilities, and it shows why it's important to spend time thinking about it and then working through that instead of really coming to just a quick conclusion about the situation, especially when we have limited information. Thank you so much for your participation in that. So as systems thinkers, we really need to work hard to develop a deep understanding of the system as a whole, and especially to see what is below the surface. This can really be a challenge in daily situations, but as parents or in our workplaces or in our community, it's really important to be able to do this. And so as you can see from this picture, there are several habits that are included within this iceberg. So we have mental models, we have recognizing the structure of a system, and we also have looking at leverage points and identifying areas for change. So if we go back to the example of the early intervention services, what might be a leverage point or something that would help that situation?
If the family would ask, what are the possibilities?
Sure. So just having an environment where it's safe to ask questions. So maybe, some steps to make sure that that environment exists up front would be helpful for the system, the early intervention system in that setting. So maybe just improved communication. So that's just an idea of how you can use the tool. And I would like to spend a little bit more time looking at the habits just one more time before we wrap up. But as we think about the parent in this situation, are there any habits that might help them work through their questions and get the support that they need?
Considering the issue fully.
Yes, absolutely. Considering the issue fully. And I think that's important probably for both parties, is to really recognizing schedules and lots of different things that are involved in the process of those visits. Absolutely. What about the providers? Are there any habits that would be helpful specifically for the providers in that situation? One that comes to mind for me is just the recognizing that systems change over time. So initially, this child had one provider, but then after a year, additional providers came on board. So while what was working initially, things change over time. And so perhaps, having more time available for additional providers, or recognizing that, just recognizing the change could help identify a solution in that situation. Any other perspectives from that example that you saw?
Maybe surfaces and tests assumptions.
Yes, I think that's a tricky one. It's one I am probably not very good about, but really looking at what is going on and then checking into it and seeing if that's the case, kind of verifying. And I should pull that card out because that is one I am not as good at.
I'm wondering about considers how mental models affect current reality in the future. So for instance, if the parent doesn't have a sense of feeling of equality with providers, there may be some reluctance to, voice their concerns and their questions there.
Absolutely. There might be a reason that is something that's an experience that's holding the parent back from pursuing that conversation. But mental models, I hope you see as we get into this, mental models are so important in systems thinking. All these habits are important, but I think this is one that can really, if we can get at these more often, we can see the results that we're hoping for. So with that, I just want to have a little bit of time for discussion and questions. And I've got some things I'd like you to think about. And if you're willing to share, that would be great. We do have a link, and I think Diane's going to share that in the chat, where you can look at the habits, but then when you click on it, it will actually flip them over. And you can see questions on the back. So if you want to look at that or look at your handout, just think about how you might use these habits in your role as a parent. Maybe think about an example when you've applied one of these habits. And then think about your role as a leader. Maybe what's one habit you would like to work on. So I'm going to give you a little bit of time to just look at the information, but I would welcome anyone that wants to share, or if you have additional questions or things you'd like to bring up, we do have a little bit of time for that.
I would say that as a parent, I can see a number of these in IEP meetings. Checking results and changes of actions if needed with, you always have to recheck to make sure everybody's doing what they need to do, that is the right thing for the child. And that, there's follow through and showing results, so.
Definitely. I think that is a great example, and that kind of aligns with my work in early intervention and looking at IFSPs. And I know we've got some service coordinators that are involved. So that is just a really, really great example. I'm going to stop sharing so I can see people. And hopefully I can read the questions again if you'd like, but no, that's great. And I'm so glad that you're able to see just how, while these are habits of systems thinking, a lot of these things are probably things you're doing already, but sometimes just recognizing good habits and positive ways to encourage change just gives us confidence in our roles as a leader too.
Hi, I think that as well, someone mentioned AIPs, and I think it is very important, especially for underrepresented communities, to encourage them or their interpreters to ask, not to be afraid of asking, because when you ask, you learn. And it's so important that you know and that you feel like your question is not a silly question. And with your question, another person can also learn. So we need to encourage people, especially when your first language is, sorry, I have my video off. I didn't realize. Especially when English is not your first language. If you're with an interpreter, take the time, give the necessary, because I work with families, and we did a lot of, meetings with teachers, and it seems like they're always in a rush. Take time. Parents need to know. People and students and parents need and deserve answers, and they deserve the correct information. That's what we need as leaders and in any environment that we work with. To ask is good, is good.
Yes, I think that's great. And I think that that's something these habits all reinforce because there's questions on the back. So I think hopefully we've set up a good environment for questions, and you feel like, oh yeah, it's good to ask questions, because the more you ask questions, the more you're learning, the more you're taking in, and the more you can get through the different levels of that iceberg. So definitely a great point. Any habits that you're wondering about, or just other general thoughts?
I often come across just making meaningful connections between systems. Sometimes a system can't provide a service because of limitations. So for example, like the school couldn't provide speech therapy to my daughter because she was able to communicate with her peers, and that's what's educationally appropriate, but there was some articulation errors. So I could look into maybe other leverage points or other systems like the healthcare system that could provide, some of that support in that area. And then, as our kiddos get older and I think transition into different areas, we often have to think about, like social skills and social training is one thing that comes up for us, and how can we leverage what other areas that we're in to really support growth in an area. It may not be a formal system, but how can we do that outside of and really think about what are the other options available, maybe church or friends that can be helpful, and we can kind of tap into maybe the systems for support and resources and information. So.
Absolutely. So many great things. And I hope with this discussion too, you see how the habits are connected, how different systems connect to each other, and how they really kind of build on that. And it just gives you a more rich understanding, or just a bigger, just gives you more to think about and more to kind of work on. It looks like we're getting close on time. Any other thoughts or questions to share before I pass it back over officially? Thank you so much for letting me present and sharing this information. My last slide, there is a link, and there's you can learn more about systems thinking through the Water Center. The links that I provided will also kind of get you there. So I would encourage you to look at that if you would like to learn more. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tonya. There was a lot of great information today. Next Thursday, the 29th, we will be talking about vacation tips and tricks. And then if you have any more questions, you can contact us at these emails. And thank you very much for joining us. And I hope you guys all have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Angela.